so I can pretend like there's, no, that's fine. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our community information meeting for the Churchill Faith Education Fund. My name's Caleb Smansky. I'm the lead pastor here at Oasis Community Church, but I'm also wearing another hat today as the president of this organization. So we have a very small crowd in-house tonight, which is why it's so important that we are doing these meetings. And some of you guys might be watching this after the fact on the live stream, so I'm going to act like the room's big, just so you get all the information that you need and try and answer as many questions that you might have as I possibly can. The Churchill Faith Education Fund exists and has started. Of course, I have to reset this, which is always fun. If you go to church here, you know that I'm always dealing with this mess. Let's see. So I can control my slides. Started because in the One Big Beautiful Bill in the summer of 2025, the federal government created the largest federal funding program for school choice that the U.S. has ever seen, known as the Education Freedom Tax Credit. You also might hear of it as the Federal School Choice Tax Credit or Federal Tuition Tax Credit. And the basic framework for how this works is you or any taxpayer can donate up to $1,700 to us, the Churchill Faith Education Fund. We then fund tuition scholarships to students at local Christian evangelical schools. And then when you file your taxes the following year, your tax liability can be reduced dollar for dollar up to $1,700 according to the donation that you gave to the organization. So we were built for the purpose of being a vehicle for this tax credit. Essentially, when we heard this was a reality, I started talking to some of the headmasters at our local schools, said, hey, do we have a qualified scholarship granting organization and a means of taking advantage of this, or is anyone working on it? The answer was no, and so I said, okay, let's make it happen. And so here we are, Churchill Faith Education Fund. Now, I want to begin talking about this tax credit program with a disclaimer that my treasurer was very, very concerned that I make clear to everybody that we are not tax professionals and we cannot advise you on your specific tax situation. And so as a donor, no matter what you're donating to, you should always speak to your tax advisor or financial planner. Don't take my word as gospel. A lot of these things are still shifting, and the specific laws or criteria about how this is going to work could still change as the Treasury Department works this out. So you want to make sure that your specific financial circumstances will actually benefit from donating and filing for the Education Freedom Tax Credit. We are waiting for what's called guidance from the Treasury Department on all of this. Basically, the law's written, but oftentimes these laws are finalized at 2 a.m. the night before, and they're adding a whole bunch of things in order to get more votes so the law will pass. And it appears that this tax credit was kind of one of those things that was added probably at 2 a.m. the night before. So there's a lot of unclear language, and the Treasury Department actually has to work that out into practical applicational realities. And then they issue guidance, which we've been told is going to come officially in September. As of a couple weeks ago, they did make some comments about what they think is going to be the case. And so that was a little bit helpful to us. And so I can answer a little more questions today than I was able to 3 weeks ago. But that's my disclaimer. Not tax professionals. Don't take my word as gospel. I can't guarantee you that your tax situation will fit for this, but I can speak about the tax credit in general. So what are we talking about? The EFTC can only be claimed on qualifying contributions after December 31st, 2026. So donations made this year will be tax deductible because we are an approved 501c3 now, but they will not qualify for this tax credit. Those donations qualify beginning January 1st, 2027, which means you'll file for the tax credit beginning January 1st, 2028. So that's a clarification there. Taxpayers must be a citizen or resident of the United States. They must be individuals, not corporations or other entities. So businesses cannot take advantage of the EFTC. It's also a non-refundable tax credit. So let me clarify what that means. You have non-refundable and refundable tax credits. The most common refundable tax credit is the child or dependent tax credit. So if you have a child, you file your taxes and you claim that child as a dependent, you will receive a dollar for dollar refund. I think the credit right now is $2,200 per child. It's a refundable credit, which means even if you didn't pay any taxes that year or you didn't owe any taxes to the federal government at all, you will still get a refund of $2,200. Now, with the EFTC, it's a non-refundable tax credit. What that means is if you didn't pay taxes, you don't owe taxes, you have no tax liability, then you will not benefit from this tax credit. As long as you paid taxes or owe taxes, and you might have paid them already through withholdings to your paychecks, for example. So you might have already paid the government $4,000 in taxes this year, and then after your taxes are run, you're going to get a refund of, say, $1,200, but there's still $2,800 of tax liability, meaning the government's keeping that $2,800. This tax credit will be able to reduce that tax liability. You would get that additional $1,700 back. As long as you owe or have paid taxes, then it works for you. Contributions must be made in cash, not necessarily dollar bills. You can write a check, you can give online through a credit card, but they can't be stock or property or other types of assets. Also, the unused portion of your non-refundable credits can carry forward up to 5 years. So let's say you had $500 of tax liability, you donated $1,700, claimed the credit. Well, you have $1,200 there because the $500 reduces down to zero. You get that money back, but there's $1,200 of unused tax credits. You can actually carry that over for up to 5 years and apply it to future tax returns. So that's how that works. There's a no double benefit rule. So there are some states that already have school choice tax credit programs in place. Nevada actually has one that we will be looking into employing at some point in the future. That specifically has to do with businesses. But in a state like Arizona that has a state level tax credit program for school choice, you can't use the same donation and claim the state credit and the federal credit with the same donation. That would be double dipping. That's the no benefit rule. You can't take both credits with the exact same donation. Now, you could donate for the state credit and then donate separately for the federal credit and have different monies claiming both tax credits, but it can't be the same donation. Perfect. I think that covers what the EFTC is all about. Now, in order to qualify for this, we need to be what's called a qualified SGO. SGO stands for Scholarship Granting Organization. In order to become a qualified SGO, we have to, one, become a 501c3. Praise the Lord, that happened. We were approved on the 1st of June this year. We also have to grant at least 10 scholarships to students that attend more than one school. And we have to do that before the end of this year, before January 1st, so that we can actually apply and become qualified. We also have to keep our organizational expenses below 10% of all of our donations received, and we have to operate in a state that has opted in. So let's talk about those last 2 points. Some people have asked, well, what expenses would an organization like this really have? What can I expect these funds to be used to actually pay for? So this year, we've had to pay a $600 fee to apply to the IRS for nonprofit status, right? We had to apply for an EIN and state business registration. That was $112. We have a post PO box fee, stamp fees, envelopes, that kind of basic stuff just to be able to communicate with people. Everything else we've tried to do cost-free. That's why we don't have any print media out. People have asked if we have handouts or flyers that they can send around to family members, and the answer is not yet, because we're trying to keep our costs as low as possible to ensure that our expenses are below 10% of donations received. Eventually, we're going to need insurance for our board members. We're going to need a software or program to be able to manage all of our donors and to be able to receipt them accordingly and maintain compliance on the accounting side of everything. So those are the types of things that will actually cost us money down the road. Now, about states opting in. So the way this tax credit system's built is every single state, the governor has to actually opt in to the program, and not every state has done so. So I believe as of now, it's something like 30 states, maybe up to 31, 32 have opted into the program, but there are other states, in particular, highly liberal states or states with Democrat governors, who have publicly stated they will not opt into the program. In fact, the state of Rhode Island, their state assembly passed a law that actually made it more difficult for their governor to opt in, because now it's not just the governor who opts in, it's also the state assembly who has to vote and agree with the governor in order to do so. So some of the states are actually intentionally opposing this program. Now, the good news is Nevada did opt in. Joe Lombardo opted in, I think, 23rd of January of this year. He seems to be very clearly excited about this type of tax credit. Hopefully that will help us in the future continue utilizing these resources. Now, with that said, this is actually the greatest risk to this program, and that is if we get a governor who is elected to the state of Nevada that does not want to see these programs take place, they could potentially opt out again, and all of a sudden we're lost and we can't engage in the federal program anymore. So be praying about that, be voting accordingly, talk to people about that if you want to see this succeed. State politics do matter, and we need to pay attention to that side of the equation. Donations can be earmarked to a specific school, but not a specific student. So you can't donate and write Johnny Williams at this school. That would be considered by the IRS to just be a tuition payment. Same rules for churches. You can't give a $100,000 check to your kid through a church so you can write it off. Okay, that would be illegal. So that would be considered a tuition payment. However, you can write on your donation, I want this money to go to Veritas. If your kids attend Veritas or Logos, right? If your kids attend Logos, then you can write the school's name on that check. And if you want to make sure that there are as many scholarships funded to that school as possible, even if your kid goes there, that's A-okay. It will increase the odds that your kid will actually have the resources to be able to help them go to school. So you can earmark it to a specific school. You cannot earmark it to a specific student. Scholarships must be used for qualified expenses. That includes tuition, includes fees, tutoring, special needs services, transportation, and technology. Those are broad categories. They have not defined yet specifically inside those categories what things qualify. And for that reason, we are focusing specifically on tuition-based scholarships in the very least for right now. There's potential for that to change and adjust in the future, perhaps. But right now, tuition-based scholarships, those seem to be the clearest path to be able to help people and also to make sure we qualify with the government and make this thing work. We are required to prioritize previous recipients of scholarships followed by their siblings. And so we have scholarship students this year. One of the benefits, if you are a family who fills out an application and receives a scholarship from us, is even if that scholarship's $10, it puts you in a category of priority for future resources to ensure that your kids are at the top of the list to make sure that they have the resources they need to attend school in the future. This law or rule also helps to ensure kids can stay at the same school throughout their education, because if you run the risk of, okay, I have funding this year, but next year I don't know because someone else who makes less money is at the front of the line, then those kids risk not being able to continue and finish their education. That's not what we want, and that's not what the bill or the law wants to see either. Annually, we have to verify the recipient's household income does not exceed 300% of area median income. This is actually a big deal because a lot of tax credits for school choice are based on the poverty level, not the AMI, and the area median income is a lot higher. So 3 times the poverty level for a family of like 3 or 4, somewhere in there, is something like $90,000, $97,000. But from what it appears, based on the comments they've made about upcoming guidance from the Treasury Department, we'll probably be using the Housing and Urban Development data. And that means a family of 4 can actually earn up to $268,500 a year in 2026. And those numbers are inflated over time. And they can still qualify, which is huge. The vast majority of families in the middle class or below are going to be eligible for their kids to receive resources through this tax credit program. Now, the board of directors has not officially determined the specific parameters for prioritizing new scholarship recipients yet. We will be meeting at the beginning of July to begin that discussion, but it will be based on financial need. We will have an objective, codified, programmable, reusable equation, basically, that will determine priority for students, and it's going to have to be based on financial need primarily. I say that because we're in a complicated educational system where students transferring the public school system into private schools don't necessarily have a report card that looks the same as what we might get from students who are already in a private school environment. And so we don't really feel capable of judging academic skill set or any of those types of things simply based on a report card. We still ask for report cards in our applications, but it's more a matter of understanding the character of the student and whether or not they're going to succeed in these school environments, right? So we leave the academics up to the schools. And so you'll actually apply for scholarships through the schools. You have to be accepted to a qualified school in order for your student to receive a scholarship. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But for us, it's just a matter of who has the greatest need based on their income levels. And so on our applications, we actually ask the family to tell us how much can you pay and how much are you asking for. How that will be helpful to us is we want to give as many scholarships as we can. We want to help as many kids attend school as possible. And so if we have two families, they both make exactly $100,000 a year, and they both have 3 kids, all those kids are attending school. One family has asked for $3,000 per kid. The other family's only asked for $2,000 per kid. Well, then if I elevate and I prioritize the family that's only asking for $2,000 per student, I can scholarship all 3 of their kids and one of the kids from the other family, right? So we get as many kids going into and being able to achieve their educational goals as possible. But it will all be income-based, and it'll be something along those lines. Continued. There's so many rules, so I want you to know what they are. Students who are automatically disqualified from receiving scholarships regardless of their income level. First category are children, grandchildren, or other direct relations of our board members. So as long as I'm on the board, my own kids can't receive scholarships to go to our local private schools. In addition to that, there's a category called major donors whose children will also be disqualified. I want to define for you what the IRS calls a major donor. There are 2 categories or 2 parameters that you would have to meet, and you have to meet both of these parameters, not just one of them, over the lifetime of your donations to an organization. The first parameter is you have to have given more than $5,000 in total since the beginning of your engagement with CFEF. In addition to that, your donations have to total more than 2% of total revenues that we have received for the lifetime of the organization, okay? So that's really hard to accomplish. Just to give you a sort of an example of what that would look like, let's say that 5 years from now, CFEF has brought in a total of $1 million, okay? We brought in a total of $1 million, and you would have to have given over those 5 years $20,000 for that to represent both more than $5,000 and 2% of everything that we've received. So the actual goal here is not to get a few people who donate a lot of money to be able to send kids to school. It's to get as many people as possible donating up to that $1,700 threshold every year so that the government will pay everybody back and we could take advantage of federal funding, your own tax dollars being used here locally in Churchill County to fund tuition payments to kids to be able to afford our really great private schools. So crowdfunding, essentially, for school choice is what we're going for. It's a back road inlet to federal funding here in Churchill County for our kids. And that's pretty remarkable because even our state taxes that are gathered through property taxes and are supposed to go to the education system, my property taxes do not fund kids going to school in Churchill County. It all goes into a big bucket at the state level, and then state boards and state committees decide how to disperse those resources based on population and a number of other things, right? And so those resources probably are ending up largely in places like Reno and Las Vegas, Henderson, and highly populated, densely populated areas. These resources go right here. And so it's crowdfunding. We're not looking for a few people to give a lot. We're looking for everybody to give everything they can up to that threshold that the government will reimburse them for. Now, let's talk applications. If a student wants to receive a tuition scholarship, they first must apply to their school of choice. Your kid has to be accepted to the school first. We are actually circulating our scholarship applications through the front office at our qualified schools. So when you apply, ask your school for an application. Most of your schools will probably automatically insert these applications in the future. into your annual registration packets or whatever they're trying to receive from you. If we have students that have received scholarships before, we likely will communicate with those families directly to verify income and to determine how much funding they need in order to continue their education at their school as well, to try and take some load off of the schools and the school offices. Applications will be submitted to us by the qualified schools along with a letter verifying school acceptance, and then we will verify enrollment with the school following the start of the school year. Those are requirements. We have to do them every single year with every single student that we fund. Now, let's talk about short-term goals real quick. So our short-term goals, we want to, number one, in 2026, become an approved 501c3. Check, that's done. Made it happen. Beginning of June, we got that letter. We need to raise at least $10,000 this year. Fortunately, because of some very generous donors, we've already raised $5,100 of that target. So we're more than halfway there. Now, why 10,000? Because I expect that our expenses as an organization will land just under $1,000. And we have to keep that under 10% of total resources received. So that means we got to raise $10,000. We need to use at least $9,000 of that to scholarship students this year. Again, those donations won't be eligible for the tax credit. You won't get reimbursed dollar for dollar from the government for that, but you will be able to include them in your giving contribution if you itemize your taxes on your tax return, and it will be a deduction for you if you're able to help us achieve that goal. So then we have to grant scholarships to at least 10 students at more than one school. We're not restricting it necessarily to 10 students. We will ultimately make the choice based on the resources we have, whether to grant more scholarships to more students that are of a smaller amount or to grant fewer scholarships that are of a greater amount. That's up to the board to decide as we kind of navigate all this. But at least 10 scholarships to students at more than one school. So those are the goals for 2026. As we look towards 2027, my hope is that once this tax credit is fully running, operational, and if we're able to achieve status as a qualified SGO, well then I want to see us grant at least half tuition scholarships to 50 students or more. This will require approximately $170,000 in funding. That's 100 taxpayers or families who can give $1,700 and max out their tax credit next year. Ideally, I would love to see this happen at the beginning of the year. Okay, the temptation, I think, for some people is going to wait until December so they can donate their $1,700 and then turn around a month later and file their tax return, and by the end of February, they have their money back, right? It's the shortest route to letting us borrow your resources and then getting the government to pay you back. If we all wait till December, then we're not going to be able to hit this goal in 2027. So we're looking for generous people who will make this happen at the beginning of the year. And then, Lord willing, everyone who does donate will be completely reimbursed through the EFTC credit when they file their taxes in 2028. And then when we look at 2028 and beyond, more long-term, what am I dreaming of? What do I really want to see happen? Number one, we want to prioritize filling maximum enrollment at qualified schools given current staffing and facility levels. So based on our schools, how many teachers they have and the facility resources that they're able to accommodate, we want to fill those schools up. Why? Well, because that helps the school run at the most efficient level they possibly can. You're helping or teaching more students, or the maximum amount of students you can with the same amount of resources, right? You need one teacher for 10 kids and you need one teacher for 20. If we can get 20 teachers in or students in there, then that helps the schools succeed. Number two, once that happens, we want to allow schools to actually be able to increase tuition costs without negatively affecting enrolled families. So if you know anything about the private education system, then you know that our local schools charge very little for what they give. Like, that doesn't mean it's not hard to afford it. I think tuition at some of our schools hangs right around $5,600 a year per student. That's a lot of money. If you go into Atlanta, where some of my family lives, it's going to be $10,000 to $15,000 per student. Even the public school system, from what I understand, receives approximately $10,500 per enrolled student to fund the education that they provide. So if we can allow the schools to increase tuition costs without the families having to pay more, then we can improve the actual education that these students are receiving. How? By paying teachers better, which will improve teacher retention, better benefits to teachers, improving their enjoyment of the work that they do, which will only make them better at their jobs. We'll be able to help the schools invest in better facilities, better playgrounds, perhaps sporting fields, whatever that is, extracurriculars, field trips, things of that nature as well. So we want to see it happen without affecting students and keeping families from being able to afford that education. Number 3, if we can achieve those 2 things down the road, well, then let's see what we can do in helping launch new schools and or expand existing schools. So if we have more students who want to attend, then let's figure out how to do it, whether that's increasing the enrollment levels by building new classrooms or whatever that is, or I'd love to see a Christian high school launched in town. We'd probably be glad to host it here at Oasis, but whoever wants to host it, I don't care. I just want to see faith-based education all the way through the system so that we can actually reach maybe even lost families, right? I have talked to some schools who are now receiving phone calls from families who start the conversation with, hey, we don't really go to church. We're not really believers, but we really need a better education experience for our children. And so we're wondering if you would be willing to accept our kids anyway. And a lot of our schools would say, yeah, as long as you're willing to abide by our code of conduct and follow our expectations, volunteer like any other parent is required to volunteer and engage in the school how we expect you to engage as a family and a parent. So great ministry opportunity. If we can pull people out of the secular environment, bring them into gospel-centered environments, why wouldn't we do that? I really hope to be able to see that happen. So launch new schools or expand existing schools would be our 3rd priority or goal. A couple organizational details you might want to know. Our founding board of directors, myself, Caleb Szymanski, the president. Shane Wuth is our secretary. Michael Anderson, our treasurer. Courtney Moline, one of our directors, and Noreen Swenson, one of our other directors. All these people are active in the community, in other nonprofits and other Christian organizations, and in church. Wonderful people who have been gracious enough to help us approve a set of bylaws and apply for our 501c3 status and helping us to organizationally make this happen. So grateful to every single one of them. If you know them or see them around town, make sure to tell them thank you. Some details about our board of directors. They can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms. So that means up to 9 years in total before they then have to take at least 1 year off and can be potentially reelected. They're elected on a rotating basis, so approximately 1/3 of the board will be elected each year. You can actually become a member of CFEF. The way you do that is by, 1, donating at least $500 each year to the organization. So we couldn't really figure out how to qualify people as members or voting members of the organization except by means of donations. But we didn't want only the most wealthy families among us to be able to take part in voting and building the organization and monitoring it and holding it accountable in the future. And so we set that limit at $500 because we felt like it was achievable for more families from more economic platforms, but also high enough to ensure that the families who are getting a vote in what we're doing actually have some significant level of buy-in in the organization as a whole. If you don't like the number, you can always donate, become a member, and then you can help us change it later if you want to change it. Number 2, you have to agree with the statement of faith of the National Association of Evangelicals. So why did we choose the National Association of Evangelicals? Because it's a concise, clear 7-point doctrinal statement that virtually every evangelical Christian church is going to be able to approve, but it's not going to ostracize us based on our second-order doctrinal principles, the things that characterize us and ultimately lead us to meeting in different buildings around town and how we teach the Bible or our particular theological positions. So it's tight enough to exclude the groups that we don't really want to focus on. And let me say this. People have asked like, okay, well, are you guys just going to scholarship kids to Christian schools? Well, the answer is yes, because that's what we're invested in. If other people in town want to, 1, launch a secular private school because they don't exist in our community right now, and 2, launch an SGO that does scholarship those students at those types of schools, they're welcome to do that. That's just not what we're doing. So we're focusing on evangelical Christian schools and the students that attend those schools. So that's what we're using as our baseline. It's third party, it's clear enough, and yet not too strict to ostracize many people. What rights or privileges do you get as a member? You get to vote for or in, one, our board elections. You get to help elect the board of directors. You also get to vote on bylaw adjustments. So, for example, that $500 limit, you could help us change that if you felt like it needed to be lower, higher, or anywhere in between, as that's part of and included in the bylaws. You also gain the potential to serve on the board of directors. There are some excluded groups who cannot, by law, according to IRC code 25F, serve on our board of directors. And that is anyone who is a staff member or on the board of one of the schools that we scholarship students to. So there's a very clear demarcation that we as a scholarship granting organization cannot control the schools or the decisions that the schools make. We are simply here to help fund students, and the schools are free to operate how the schools choose to operate. Now, we could potentially disqualify a school if they fail to operate according to the statement of faith that we've asked them to operate by, but that would be our only way of essentially engaging with the schools themselves. For that reason, we don't want someone on our board who's also running one of the schools. Legally, we can't allow that to happen. So if that's not you, you could potentially serve on our board of directors. And then also, we may appoint subcommittees from time to time. So the board might see fit to appoint a subcommittee of members to actually evaluate applications to scholarships at each individual school. We might appoint a subcommittee for Veritas scholarships. We might appoint a subcommittee for Logos scholarships. If you want to participate in that, then you'd potentially be able to do so as a member at the board's discretion. Membership is valid for the year the contribution is made and the following year. So if you donate up to $500 this year, then you are a member through the end of 2026 and all of 2027. If you want to extend your membership into 2028, well, then next year you have to donate an additional $500 or your membership will expire. Other details here, we will hold an annual business meeting to review how many scholarships we've given, how much resources have come in, how much did we spend as an organization, any adjustments to the bylaws that need to take place, board elections will all take place at that annual meeting. It will be held in February each year. The date for 2027 is to be determined. It will be published in writing probably in November of this year. We will also publish a list of eligible schools annually before that meeting in February. Currently, eligible schools for 2026 and 2027 are Logos Christian Academy and Veritas Preparatory School. I don't know if I spelled that right. Did I spell that right? Who knows? I did not. I'll fix that. I think I fixed it on my other set of slides because someone told me I spelled it wrong. So P-E-R-E-P-A, if that's correct, Mrs. Rosario. Thank you. So Logos Christian Academy, Veritas Preparatory School. Immediate question people are going to have is, what about Agape? What about Agape Christian School? So right now we are not qualifying Agape because we are unclear without the Treasury Department's guidance as to whether or not, one, Agape will count as a school by the definition of this tax code. Now, why would you question that? Well, from what I understand, again, we don't control Agape. What I have heard and learned from the people who are involved there, all of the students at Agape are technically, legally licensed as homeschooled students, and they're essentially participating in a group tutoring program. Now, the tax credit can be used to fund tutoring, but we don't know yet what it means to be a qualified professional, according to their definition, for tutoring to homeschooled students. And then they have come out and commented that the state has to actually qualify homeschool students as attending a school in order for that school to qualify as a school. And that's kind of unclear from the state level from the research I've been able to do. So we are waiting on clarification of a number of things before we can greenlight Agape students and be able to help them through this tax credit program as well. So right now we have 2 schools, and I'm grateful to have 2 schools so that we can actually engage this program. If you have more questions, if you're a family who attends Agape, you're welcome to reach out. Love to chat with you guys about that. How can you help? We need to raise $10,000. So whatever you can give will help us reach that goal. We're halfway there. I'd love to see us reach that goal before the end of July, because I'd love to be able to actually tell these families who are attending these schools how much we're going to be able to help them with before school begins in August. So that gives us about a month to see if we can raise another $4,900 at least. If we raise more than that, we'll scholarship more than that. I'd love to see us pull that off. So if you're capable of donating to help us reach that goal, donations will be tax deductible. They will not be eligible for the tax credit because they're donated this year, and the tax credit doesn't start until next year. You can make checks payable to CFEF, CFEF, or the Churchill Faith Education Fund if you want to go long-winded and write the whole name out. You can mail them to P.O. Box 701 in Fallon, Nevada, 89407. I had to apologize to our treasurer or our secretary because she corrected me on that zip code, and I was wrong at our last informational meeting. So 89407, P.O. Box 701. Checks can be made payable to CFEF or the Churchill Faith Education Fund. Eventually, we will have digital and online abilities to donate, but again, that costs money. They take 2 to 3% of the donation, which would be one of our expenses, and that would increase that total donor amount we need to achieve. So we're holding off on certain things that could restrict us from success. How else can you help? Reach donors. We need you to help us find people who are willing and capable of funding this initiative here in Churchill County. Most of the interest that I have received has been from parents who are desperate to see their kids in a different school environment, and they can't afford it. And so I'm grateful to talk to them. I'm so glad that they're interested, that they understand it. My challenge to you as a parent is, please go out and talk to everyone you can about this program and drum up as much interest as possible from people who actually want to be donors. And why would you not want to donate to this? If theoretically you're in a position where you hate the idea of school choice, you want to force all kids into government-controlled school programs, then maybe you wouldn't want to donate to this. But if not, if you're of any other frame of mind, then why would you not give as much as you can, knowing that the government's going to pay you back dollar for dollar when you file your taxes the next year? And the beauty of this is, even if people live in a state that has not opted into the program, they can still donate into an SGO that's in a state that has opted in. So my friend that lives in Rhode Island, whose state is not opting in and has made it even more difficult to opt in, they can and will, because I know how generous they are, donate here in Churchill County to help send kids to school here in Churchill County. It means mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, your aunts, uncles, cousins who don't have kids or who can't send their kids to private schools because they're in a state that hasn't opted in. They can all take the tax credit by donating to the Churchill Faith Education Fund and help your kids go to school. So we need boots on the ground. We need people. We need word of mouth talking about this left and right and getting as many people involved as possible, not just this year, but off into the future as well. A couple of one-liners that you can use. Would you like to guarantee that up to $1,700 of your federal tax dollars get spent right here in Churchill County funding tuition scholarships to students to attend school? Like, they will pay you back. You get to tell Uncle Sam, hey, I know that I paid you $1,700. I know you're going to use that one way or another, but would you use it here in Churchill County? And Uncle Sam's going to say, yes, I will do that because it's in the law. It's written into the law. If I could do that with every tax dollar I paid, I would do it with every single tax dollar that I paid. You just have to be generous enough to donate it first, and then the federal government will pay you back. And so that's the other way you can really easily explain it. What if you could help kids go to Christian school and have the government pay you back every single dollar that you put in, up to $1,700? Really easy way for people to say, well, that would be really cool. And this is one of those laws or pieces of the One Big Beautiful Bill that has swept under the radar. A lot of people don't even know that it exists. So we need to get the word out. We need to bring in donors. And by the way, if your student attends one particular school, if your student attends Veritas or they attend Logos, by all means, encourage those donors to earmark the scholarship for the school that your student attends. That ensures that there's more resources for that school, and we can better guarantee that your students will actually benefit from the program as a whole, because they can't earmark it for your kid, but they can earmark it for the school. So it is pertinent for the schools themselves and for the families at those schools to really take up this banner and go out and make it happen and help us achieve these goals, because it's all to your benefit. Okay, question time. Now, there's a lot of people in the room, like I said, so we'll have to see how many questions I can remember from our last informational meeting, and maybe y'all down here can help me so we get people online with as much information as possible. I know one person asked, what if my husband and I file our taxes separate? So you might be a couple that doesn't file your taxes married, filing joint. You file separately and individually. Beautiful thing, because the tax credit can be claimed by each individual tax filer. And so if you do file separately, you can donate not just $1,700 from your family, but 2 separate donations of $1,700 for a total of $3,400, and the government will pay you back, assuming that your tax situation applies. Again, disclaimer, I'm not a tax accountant, and I can't assure you that that's the case. So talk to your tax advisor. By the way, if that's the case, typically speaking, our member families receive 1 vote, whether they're married or single. So you don't get to come into the annual business meeting and just because your husband and wife cast 2 votes. You can, however, if you file separately and you clarify that with us as an organization, and both partners give at least $500, then you can actually get 2 votes at our annual business meeting and on bylaws, adjustments, and elections and things like that. So that was one of the questions that we had for sure. Any other things you remember, Jill, Shane, that people asked from almost a month ago now? I'll give it a minute and see if my brain can remember a few. Oh, there was a question about if you have, so about the double dipping problem, right? So one family has grandparents who live in Arizona. Like I mentioned, Arizona already has a state tax credit program. And so they were curious, can grandma and grandpa give at the state level to support kids that, or grandkids they have in Arizona, but then give here in Churchill County to get the federal tax credit? And the answer is yes, as long as they donate separate amounts of money to claim each of those tax credits. So they can't give a total of $2,000 and then claim both this credit and the state credit with the same $2,000. They have to give separate amounts and be clear on that matter. Some people have asked about the state program and how in Nevada and how it differs from the federal program and whether or not we're going to be able to engage in both of those programs in the future. The answer is we don't know yet. The way the state program works, and it's been around for actually a number of years, I want to say 6 years or more, is it's a business program. And so businesses can actually ask to receive credits, and instead of paying the state government their quarterly modified business income tax, they can instead donate what they would pay to the state government to an SGO like ourselves, and then we can use that money to scholarship students. The reason it's complicated is, one, there's a cap on how many credits the state will allow. Right now, they won't allow businesses to donate up more than $6 million in total each year across the whole state. State assemblymen have actually tried to change that and increase that amount several times. They tried this year, and it keeps failing because some of our state legislators don't want to see school choice take place. So again, this is where your vote matters, and trying to influence state politics in this particular regard will benefit our local schools. Some of the other complicated dynamics are the state program works off of poverty level, not area median income. So totally 2 different income levels. It also requires the SGO to not spend more than 5% of the resources that come in rather than 10%. My hope is down the road that as long as we have separate bank accounts and we receive those donations into separate bank accounts, we account for our scholarshiping principles separately, and we ensure that we're not spending too much money as an organization, that we'll be able to operate both and increase the odds of actually funding students here locally as well. But be praying that that $6 million cap expands, because from what I understand, the minute those credits open up or applications open up in July, they're gone the same day right now. So we really need to see that shift and change. Other questions? Yeah.
So with the $500 membership, does that go towards the scholarship?
It does, correct. So
And where do we get the paperwork to fill that out?
to apply, yes. So 2 questions for those who are listening online. 1, if you donate $500 to become a member, does that actually fund scholarships to go to students? The answer is yes. We're not just pocketing that money and setting it aside for our own expenses or whatever that is. All the donations we receive will increase the amount of scholarships that we're able to send. The $500 is simply a limit to ensure that people are engaged with what we're doing in order to receive a vote from what we're doing, right? And the other question was, where do we get an application? So I have 10 applications printed here, so I'll be able to get you guys one if you want. Also, check with your local school. So I know schools are on reduced hours right now because it's summertime, but you're welcome to call, leave a voicemail. I'm sure at some point they will be able to get back with you and help you figure out how to get an application. If for some reason you can't get one through your school front office, call here at Oasis Community Church, 775-423-2300. You'll be able to get in touch with me that way, and I'll be able to get a scholarship application to you as well. If you know one of our board members that were on the slide there, you can reach out to them, and we'll get you one that way also. But you can certainly leave today with one. So, any other thoughts, questions before we hang up the hat? Okay, then if you would allow me to, I'd love to pray for what we're doing, for CFEF, for politics, because we really need those to continue. Oh, by the way, that reminds me of one more question. Some people have asked, how easily can this be taken away from us, right? Well, I mentioned the risk at the state level. So if we get a governor who doesn't want to see this happen, or we get a state assembly that doesn't want to see this happen, and they somehow figure out a legal way to rob the governor of the ability to opt in and out of this program, that could be bad for us. But the other thing we need to know that's actually encouragement is this is not a temporary tax credit. So some tax credits are written into law to naturally expire after a certain number of years. This one was not written that way. This one is a permanent tax credit. So it's not already, there's no expiration date already set on it, which means it will be more difficult to actually take it out of law at the federal level because they have to write a whole new bill, a whole new law that actually repeals what has taken place. So that's good news. One more piece about that, part of our goal and our strategy as a board, and we don't know exactly how we're going to be able to pull this off under the parameters that are set for us, and when it's going to be best advantageously to do so, given the needs the schools have and the families have. But I would love to see us as an organization stockpile investments in stocks, bonds, strategic investments, high dividend yield ETFs, things of that nature that actually pour income back in so that if for some reason, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, who knows when, the law changes, the state opts out, we no longer have access to the tax credit, well, then we've built up a stockpile of resources to be able to weather that kind of a political storm and help students continue going to school and not have to axe programs and send a bunch of families back to public school who would rather finish their education elsewhere. So it's going to take some strategy. It's going to take a lot of prayer, a lot of wisdom. And ultimately, if you're a member of the organization, you're going to be able to help us make those decisions down the road. So it's one more reason for you to be involved. This is going to be a community effort, and it needs to be that way. So let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for the opportunity that we have. There's so many families hurting, and if anything has been apparent to me, Lord, over the last 4 or 5 months that I've been working and putting this thing together, it's been just how many families really are desperate to see their kids have an education that's God-honoring, that's Christ-centered, that is robust, because they don't feel like they're getting that in the environments that they're currently in. And I do want to pray for our public school systems, for our legislators, for the decisions that they're making, for our culture, for the decisions that culture throws down the pipeline at legislators that are really inhibiting our educators' ability to lift up kids and care for kids and teach them what they need to know in order to be successful in life, in careers, and contributors to society as a whole. So, Lord, we don't disdain our public school system. We love our educators, but we know that it's broken. And even people on our own school board, Lord, know that it's broken. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to educate students under the gospel by the wisdom of the word, and by the excellence of quality Christian educators who are devoting their life, their skill sets, their attentions to these kids, not just as a job, but as a ministry. And why not? Why not see more private Christian evangelical schools that are full in our community to be able to actually help our families thrive? So be with us in it, Lord. We do pray for the politics side of things. Just keep this tax credit rolling. Don't take it away from us. And if possible, Lord, let's see these credits expand. More opportunities, more federal, state funding for private school choice so that we can really keep this ball moving and see some growth. And I want to see people, I want to see families, whole families, Lord, like in Philippians 16, the Philippian jailer, his whole family go down to the river that night and are baptized in the gospel. I want to see that happen because kids get to go to a Christ-centered school here in Churchill County. So be with us in it, Lord. Thank you for everyone who is watching online, who attended today, who attended earlier in the month at some of our other informational meetings, and be with us as we charge forward to this target. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching online.